So I've decided to make an Arms Warrior guide to highlight some of the specifics of how to maximize Warrior DPS. If you're struggling to make the DPS you want and you're not sure what's going wrong, then hopefully I can help you improve. So probably the most common thing I see when I check the forums on the internet is statements such as, my DPS is bad, do I need more crit? Or, I'm following the rotation and my DPS sucks. When ultimately these two things are basic and these are not the reason why you're doing low DPS. What is important is highlighting each key moment of the counter to identify where you can do the most damage, planning for it, and then executing it efficiently. An example would be the execute phase. If you've got all your cooldowns during the execute phase, you Colossus Smash and you blow 120 rage into executes, you're going to do a lot of damage. Whereas if you go into that execute phase with 10 rage, you Colossus Smash, as soon as you get your rage, you're sitting there waiting for rage, nothing's going to happen, you're not going to do any DPS. So the two key parts of the fight where you're going to be doing the most DPS. A, the pull, and B, the last 20%, the execute phase. Maximizing the burst on the pull and the execute DPS are by far the most important parts of pretty much every fight. And what you do in between them almost doesn't matter. You're going to make mistakes in between those. As long as your pull DPS, rotation, execution and execute phase is good, your DPS is going to be great. Obviously RNG can play a massive part in how well you perform, but ultimately you need to learn to hold it together during the poor RNG and to just maximize it, take it to the limit, exploit it as much as you can during the good RNG. I'll use an example of one of my guild's Archimonde heroic farm kills. I thought about using Mythic High Council because it's a pure arms, 100% arms kind of fight. But you look around the forums and so many discussions pop up around Archimonde heroic, with a lot of people saying they struggle to do DPS as arms. So I thought this was the right choice. So you want to approach the fight mostly as a single target fight with the opportunity to cleave, which is also why I recommend you use sudden death rather than taste for blood. So you're on the pull, you're going to pre-pot, charge, rend the boss, and then your Colossus Smash all your cooldowns up, your trinkets, your procs, your recklessness, legendary ring, everything synchronized on the pull, on the boss. You want to pump as much damage into that ring as possible. You're not going to have your bloodlust because that's going to be used later, but everything else on the pull. Shortly later your Doomfire is going to spawn and you're going to switch to the Doomfire. As soon as the Doomfire spawns, you're going to switch target. Now if the tank has positioned the boss correctly on top of the Doomfire, you should activate your sweeping strikes, and then you need to decide based on your raid DPS if it's worth rending. I generally don't rend on the first one because the raid DPS will kill it off before the rend really makes any useful contribution. Then it's important to judge when the Doomfire is going to approach the 20%. You need to make sure that your global cooldown is free and you've got enough rage for execute. So this is the point where you're going to be execute sniping on the Doomfire. So as soon as it's approaching 20%, you need to be ready there to hit that execute off. So from this point on, you will generally keep rend on 2 to 3 targets: Archimonde himself, the Death Callers, and the following Doomfires. Maintain your rotation, make sure you're saving rage for the executes, and make sure you're not needlessly wasting rage on Whirlwind, for example. So during the second phase, you're going to see a bunch of different arts, but the basic approach to the fight doesn't change at all. You keep rend on Archimonde and the Death Caller, you maintain sweeping strikes, switch to the Overfiend as a priority, try to get some executes off the Overfiend, but don't bother rending. And the Dreadstalkers you can ignore completely. The other classes and specs just do a better job of dealing with them, and you're more likely to lose DPS by switching to them because they teleport around, and a lot of DPS with sniping executes ends up being overkill anyway. Now it's also likely that you're going to be going into the Nether Portal realm. If you're in the second group, it's important that you don't blow all your rage executing the Nether Walker, as you'll likely be exiting just as the boss is about to approach 20%. It's also unfortunate if somebody uses the ring inside there, as happened on this kill in the video. So here comes the most important part of the fight, and the main reason Arms is so strong on Archimonde. As the boss approaches 20%, you want to let your rage build up to the maximum. Yeah, 120 rage. Now you've saved your recklessness, your bloodbath, your second potion, and hopefully both bloodlust and legendary ring are going to be available for this moment. Where you're going to Colossus Smash, and then you're going to execute. Wham! Bam! Fucking slam. Execute the fuck out of the boss. Once your initial execute burst is over, you want to maintain Rend, use your Colossus Smash procs on cooldown, and continue executing. If you don't have access to the World Breaker class trinket, you're going to need to pool rage, ensure each Colossal Smash window has the full 120 rage burn, and then spam execute if the boss is going to die before the next Colossal Smash use. The key to doing great DPS is ultimately about learning each and every fight, adjusting to the rhythm of your raid group, and making the most of every situation. What works in one raid group might not necessarily work in another raid group, and so it is a constantly changing environment. But if you identify the key moments on each boss fight, manage your cooldowns accordingly, and then maximise the damage you're doing during the cooldowns, you are going to have a great time, and you are going to do a lot of damage. I'm Big Bass. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or pop into the MMO Champion Warrior forums. If you'd like to see more or have any suggestions about future videos or guides, then fire away. Oh, and feel free to subscribe.